Another episode of the A-Game podcast, A-Game show with Commissioner Mike Racy of the MIAA. Sir, thank you for taking time out here in early October as things are heating up a little bit too.
Yeah, we're kind of approaching that halfway point, I think, for the fall season, and I know we'll talk a little bit about things getting ready to tip off for the winter sports season. So we're in the thick of things, and lots of good stuff going on in the MIAA.
Let's start with one of the bigger topics, and of course that's college football. I think the conference so far is a little different than what I think some people thought we may see from the conference so far. And with that, it starts coming into playoff pictures. I mean, we're still really early in the year, but you start seeing how teams are knocking each other off like this. That potentially lends to an interesting setup for region. You know, how many teams MIAA could get down the road too.
Yeah, Chris, I've been in the MIAA as a commissioner. I think this is my 7th football season. And, before that, my work at the NCAA, I paid a lot of attention to MIAA football. And I believe this may be the strongest that the conference has been. Some people think maybe a few of the teams historically that have done very well in the MIAA and nationally might be down. I think it has more to do with that people continue to elevate. Facilities continue to improve. Coaches get better. Recruiting gets better. More money being spent on assistant coaches, trainers, strength and conditioning. It just gets better all the time, and that's what I think our schools expect. They're investing a lot of money in this sport. It's a big sport that our communities want to see their schools, their teams be successful in, and it's a very competitive year for sure this year in the MIAA in the football race.
So when you look at what the conference is doing so far, it's a lot of knocking each other around or close games. There's really, Pittsburgh State's still undefeated through this, but they've had some really close games, really good battles through there too. You start looking at the regional, and I've heard people start saying MIAA is going to get one team, maybe it's two. The parity in the league could be detrimental also down the stretch too, because of the regionalization at the same time.
Probably, which is really frustrating. And we've got 3 teams ranked in the top 25, depending on what poll you want to look at. We've got another team, Missouri Western, that's just right on the edge, receiving votes. Probably should be ranked and as one of the top 25 teams in all of Division II football. You look at an index, a power rating index like Massey ratings, and it has 9 of the 12 or 11, not counting Lincoln, MIAA football teams ranked in the top 20. That's an index that tries to take into account a variety of factors in trying to determine or compare conference strength, one conference to another, and it certainly recognizes the strength of the MIAA. But the problem's going to be, Chris, like we talked about last year, that we've got so many strong conferences in the Super Region 3. Certainly the GLIAC with Ferris State and Grand Valley again this year. The Great American Conference with Ouachita Baptist and Harding, both being in or near the top 10 in the country. We've got probably out of the MIAA, the GLIAC and the Great American Conference, depending on what you're looking at, what ranking you're looking at. Probably have 5 of the top 10 teams in the country. And when we're only going to get 7 spots in the playoffs for our region, just like every other region in the country. And a lot of my colleagues feel like, well, that's fair. That's how we do it in every sport. And I don't think so. I don't think it's right. I don't think it has to be that way. I think our Division II football student athletes deserve better. But that's the rules we play with, and we'll hope for the best come playoff time selections, that the football committee will be able to evaluate and recognize how strong the MIAA is, top to bottom, how many great programs there are in this conference, and reward our conference with the appropriate number of spots in the Division II football playoffs.
I guess the other side of the coin of that too, is it a good thing there is so many teams that look to be deserving at the same time? Because obviously you can't get in, 5 or 6 in a region ever. 3's pushing it most of the time anyway. But is that a good problem to have, that we have these conversations about, hey, we need to push toward fixing this because there are so many good schools out there too?
Yeah, it's a good thing, Chris, that I think every game's a big game. Whether we're talking week 1 or week 11, every game means something. But at the same time, it's really disappointing to be in a conference where you've got a quality program that might have 2 or 3 losses, and they know that probably means that they don't have a shot at the NCAA postseason. And, that's why we're pushing so hard for bracket expansion. I continue to continue to make the point. I continue to hammer on this. People are tired of hearing from me. But the division's only spending 60% of its resources on championships. And that's I think, an injustice to where our money needs to be to provide the best student athlete experience that we can. And we need to put more money into championships. And there's plenty of areas where the division is spending money that's not directly benefiting student athletes. And we need to stop that. We need to put money into championships and allow these brackets to expand, allow the policies to become more lenient, because we have more money for travel and transportation, and we can move some teams out of regions to avoid conference matchups and things like that. And we just need to be smarter with our money. Not everyone agrees with me, Chris, and it's disappointing. But when you look at Division III spending 80% of their money on championships, and we're only at 60%, I think something's wrong. Something needs to be fixed.
Hopefully we get to that point sometime in the future. Who knows when that may be? Things take time sometimes, right?
Yep.
But let's move on and discuss the hiring of a new baseball supervisor of umpires. Obviously, we've talked about, football supervisor before, the importance of that. Just what goes into making the decisions to have a supervisor in charge of umpires, officials, referees, and so forth?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that these are full-time, year-round positions that we have in the MIAA that provides that supervisor responsibility over a particular sport. You mentioned we're in the process of hiring a new baseball supervisor. Our former baseball supervisor has been hired by the NCAA now to be the national supervisor over all of Division II baseball. That's a good thing. That says a lot for our conference, right? That we have individuals in these positions that the NCAA wants to recruit away from us to do that job on a national scale. But these are jobs that not only are we looking for someone that can manage our officials, our umpires during the season, but they have the type of network that allows them to recruit new umpires, new officials into our conference, to evaluate officials in the job that they're doing during the year, to provide that type of critique and evaluation. And in some cases, it means that officials are not going to be invited back as part of our staff, that they have to have those difficult conversations. It's somebody in baseball. It's somebody that's going to watch a lot of baseball games, not
Right.
not just MIAA games and evaluating our officials, but obviously a lot of junior college, a lot of NAIA, a lot of other Division II conference games to find officials that umpires that want to work in our conference. So it's a very they don't get a lot of money, but they have a lot of responsibility. It's a labor of love. It's individuals, men and women, that want to give back to their sport by being in these positions, and we're very lucky, very fortunate, the type of individuals we have in those supervisor jobs in the MIAA.
When you look at those jobs and roles, obviously officiating is a pretty magnified job, whether it's high school, college, pros, more so because I think of how much technology has grown. I mean, gosh, 20, 25 years ago, we'd all be like, hey, that's not a penalty, and we just move on. Right now you have 15 different angles of it. Even high school games at this point, we go out and shoot stuff. We can go back and look at stuff. We rarely put anything on the air like that, but we can go look and see, like, that was close, stuff like that. Has that made that job that much harder? Officiating, yes, but even the supervisor's role too is everybody else has almost the same video access that we have, that we got to make sure that these men and women are getting the best of their abilities and ready to go too.
Yeah, and it's a good point, Chris, because these supervisors, they're in constant contact and communication with our coaches, and they invite that. They need our coaches to provide them that type of critical review in helping the supervisors evaluate our officials. They need to hear from a coach that, that this individual that worked our game last week, not a great communicator, not a good listener, didn't engage with me and talk to me about issues like I wanted to, or was out of position on too many calls, or didn't have control of the game. Those are the types of things our coaches are asked to provide to our supervisor to help our officials get better. And all of these tools go into that, Chris, of doing at a football game, for instance, Chris, there's a person that's hired by our supervisor that's at every football game doing an on-site evaluation. And those notes go to our supervisor. Our supervisor will then go and review every game and take a look at things like we're talking about, position of officials during certain calls. That feedback goes back to the officials. Our coaches send in a certain number of plays each week that they're able to tag or flag that they want reviewed, and they need an explanation. Why wasn't this penalty called? Or why was this penalty called? And our supervisor goes through the video and analyzes it and provides that feedback to our coaches and to our officials when they miss calls. So it's a constant use of technology, reports, live game evaluations that go into what a supervisor needs to have not only the tough discussions with our officials and the job they're doing and how they get better, but also being able to share that and communicate that with coaches and occasionally with our athletic directors about what's going on, how they're improving, how they're getting better, and in some cases, very tough discussions about this official isn't up to the MIAA standards, and he or she probably doesn't need to be working in our league anymore.
Conversations I wouldn't want to have because I'm not the most confrontational person in the world. So here we are that I probably should stay away from those type of things. But moving on, MIAA Basketball Media Day. We talked about fall sports about the halfway point for most everything, and we're not even to the beginning of basketball season, but here we are. MIAA Basketball Media Day next week. Let me do the math in my head. Next Tuesday, October 10th. Every day kind of blends together at this point in the year, right? So October 10th, Tuesday, MIAA Basketball Media Day, back again this year.
Yeah, and Chris, we'll be back again at the college basketball experience, and it's really it's a thrill that we're, as a conference, able to tip off our basketball season at such a cool venue. To be at the place where the College Basketball Hall of Fame is located, and to be in a place that has the exhibits and the interactive games and the things that our student athletes that come to Media Day enjoy being part of. They get to learn the history of the game, learn about coaches and players that have come before them. They get to interact in some competitions, some friendly games with their teammates or against other student athletes from the conference. Our coaches, obviously, men and women, are made available to do a live press conference that's showcased on the MIAA network, and then the ability to go one-on-one with any of the media that are there, in any part of the college basketball experience in downtown Kansas City. So it's a great day. I think things kick off at around 9:15 Tuesday morning, where I'll give a brief state of the association address related to basketball, and then we get right into it. I think Emporia State and Washburn get us started, and we run through the end of the day. Pittsburgh State, Missouri Southern, and Lincoln bring us home after lunch later that day. So a full day of just an opportunity to hear from our coaches, to preview the season, to meet some student athletes, and to really have a way to celebrate MIAA basketball before the season begins.
Should be a lot of fun next Tuesday, October 10th. A new partnership you guys have, MIAA, new officiating partnership, Officially Human. And I guess for a lot of people, maybe myself included, what is Officially Human, and where did the partnership come from?
Yeah, they're an organization that started before COVID. I think 2019. Their headquarters, I think they're in Illinois. They're loosely connected to the Big Ten Conference. They have partnership agreements with a number of Division I conferences. I'm proud to say, Chris, that we're the first Division II conference that has partnered with them. Their mission is really to humanize officials for youth sports, high school sports, college sports, all levels of athletics.
The name says it all.
Yeah, and it's really it's a great mission, and it's one I think that I certainly embrace wholeheartedly. That these are the types of things that we should be doing and working hard in our conference to bring greater respect to the game. And we were talking earlier about the job that our supervisors do and evaluating our officials, and our officials make mistakes, and they aren't perfect. And we've implemented replay in a few sports to give us another tool to try and fix mistakes or errors. But even with that, there's still mistakes and errors that get made, and this group is really helping us with tools, resources, messaging to remind our fans and our student athletes and even our coaches that these are moms and dads that are officiating. They're brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. They have important jobs in our communities. Many of them are former student athletes. Some of them played within our conference. All of them are doing this because they want to be around the sport still. They want to give back. It's a way for them to stay involved. None of them at the Division II level are doing this because they're getting rich. And it's a labor of love. And that's really the purpose of this group, and the partnership we have is just to remind people that these folks that we all like to yell at and criticize and in some cases things I've seen or witnessed, unbelievable the things that get said about or to these men and women that are part of our game. And this is an opportunity for us to take a step back and just remember that they are human. And they don't deserve some of the language and some of the ridicule and some of the threats directed their way. And hopefully, through our work in the MIAA, we'll continue to make MIAA athletics the healthiest environment for intercollegiate competition among any of our Division II conferences.
And, you bring that up, and I've talked to officials, high school, college officials, just kind of off camera and stuff, coaches too, that it's all, they know coaches are going to yell, right? I mean, that's part of it. They're like, that part, you kind of just know, it's at the heat of the moment. The coaches know, officials know that it's kind of a back and forth a few times. It's when everything else gets piled on top of that is where it just kind of goes, hey, do I need to do this anymore?
Right.
And coaches will say it and officials will say it. The coaches go over the line too at times too. That happens in heat of the moments, but it's everything else combined with that already high pressure situation. The coach is already on you, and then you have something else happen too. And it's just kind of a building, and it keeps getting worse and worse every year.
Yeah, there's a real risk in all levels of officiating, Chris, that we're losing officials faster than we're able to bring them on. And we're finding that, the younger generations, they're just not interested in being part of the game because of what they've seen and what they've witnessed, and in some cases what they've helped create regarding officiating. But this is a partnership where we're hoping to address some of those concerns, and there are other things going on that are aimed at showing a different way forward as it relates to officiating. Division II, for instance, this week is Fall Officials Appreciation Week. Every sport, a week to thank our officials for being part of the game. So I'd encourage anyone listening to this podcast, next time you're at one of our games, take a minute before the game or after the game, if you have a chance to visit with one of our officials, and thank them for what they do. Thank them for being part of this. Without them, we don't have intercollegiate competition. Without someone there to enforce the integrity of the game, the rules of the game, and the safety of the game, that game doesn't happen. And so we need to take time to thank our officials and to remember that they are human and they do make mistakes.
Get you out of here on this note. Growth in sports in the MIAA, one of them you brought up, and I've seen it not just in the MIAA, but across a lot of colleges. Women's wrestling, especially in Missouri here. Girls wrestling became its own sport, its own entity in high school, gosh, maybe 6 years ago now, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I can't count on both hands. Probably 15, 20 at least girls last couple of years go sign NLIs to go to college somewhere and continue wrestling, because that's one of the fastest growing sports in I assume, the MIAA and across college athletics too.
Yeah, certainly in our footprint. And Chris, how great MIAA wrestling is on the men's side. The national caliber programs that we have on many of our campuses, and I was just at Hayes this past weekend, and Hayes was the first school to come out and officially announce that they are starting a varsity women's wrestling program. That program won't actually start competition until next fall, but they already have about 20 young women that are enrolled at Hayes because of the wrestling program. So they're starting to practice and work with their coach and form the culture and the environment of a team. I think they hope that number doubles, this time next year when they are actually a varsity program and wrestling varsity meets again, in varsity meets and matches against NAIA and NCAA opponents. And I know we'll have other MIAA schools that will soon be adding women's wrestling, and I look forward, Chris, to the day on the A Game show that we can announce a new MIAA women's wrestling championship because of the number of schools that we have offering this. But it is a growth sport. It's one I'm excited about in the MIAA because of things that we're seeing happening at the high school level, and because of how successful our schools have been on the men's side in NCAA Division II wrestling.
You and I have talked about on here before. There are certain states in the Midwest that have a niche for different high school sports. Volleyball in Nebraska, we saw what happened there.
Yep.
Iowa's big in wrestling. Missouri's pretty big in wrestling too. And if you've never experienced a high school wrestling championship, there is nothing like it. I mean, it shocked me the first time I walked into. I think it was down at Mizzou, and nothing like it. Just the atmosphere, the high pressure situation, because it's one-on-one. I mean, that's it. And there's pressure, but the kids enjoy that part of what wrestling brings to them too.
Yeah, it's electric. The noise is different than anything you'll hear at another sporting event. It's just a buzz, an electric environment at big-time wrestling competition and matches and tournaments. And I know that will be created on the women's side too. And these are young women that are committed to their sport, and they've been successful in high school. And I'm proud that we're starting to find opportunities for them to bring those skills to MIAA campuses and to have a collegiate career.
Absolutely. MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy, thank you as always for the time, and looking forward to our next conversation too.
You bet. Good to see you, Chris.
Good to see you.